We want to start the show by sending out condolences to the family of the rider who lost their life during this year's Leadville Trail 100. Some of you heard about it at the award ceremony. A few saw it as you rode down Keevens. A rider was killed, making the final push for the red carpet. We are saddened by this news and want to acknowledge the friends and loved ones of this rider.
Yeah, at some point, we're going to learn about what happened and why. Right now, though, what's important is remembering our fellow Leadville racer and their family. All that matters for now and for the immediate future is keep them in our good wishes and in our thoughts. Hadi and I had a lot of fun this year, especially at the race. We always have a lot of fun with this podcast, helping you have a terrific Leadville 100. What I think we need to underscore perhaps more often, and for sure right now, is we want you to have a safe Leadville. And this tragedy reminds us how quickly things can go wrong. So please remember our fellow Leadville racer as you move forward. Stay safe. Watch out for each other as you prepare for your next starting line.
Fatty, I was blown away. Blown away by the number of people who showed up for our little pre-ride Thursday before race day. We really can't thank you enough for showing up, folks. Showing up, showing your support, and giving it your all.
Yeah, our little pre-ride was around 150 to 200 people. No one ever did a count, but so we get to estimate whatever we want. But I've been blogging about and talking about this race since I started racing it back in 1997. You can actually hear the audio version of my first race report as our season 0, episode 1 of this podcast. I have a ridiculous number of memories tied up in Leadville, both the place and the race. And in 25 years of going to Leadville, the group ride we had last Thursday, just before the race this year, it's going to be one that I will never forget. One of my top memories of all time. Our listeners' kindness and willingness to spend some of your valuable race week time was unbelievable. If you were able to attend, thank you. And we want to thank a few people who are well known who made sure to get there. Floyd Landis, for sure, number one. He joined the ride, changed his flight time to get there. And that really meant a lot to us.
Then his team shows up, Floyd's team, with all kinds of Floyd CBD products. I saw some chews and single packet balms going out. But like Floyd told us at the park, this wasn't about pushing product. It was about meeting the good people who support this show.
Yeah, Floyd's no social butterfly, although Pete Stetina, who was also there repping both Shimano and Floyd's, he's kind of a social butterfly, and he was having a ball there. Anyway, Floyd is super approachable, happy to talk. You just kind of got to go and be the first person to say something. So hopefully you did. Hopefully you went up to him, talked to him, and if you didn't get a chance to thank him for his support, drop them a note on one of their social accounts. Buying their product is also a good way. Being a follower, leave a positive note. However you like to let them know that you appreciate what they do to support this show and that ride. And the fact is, we just really value Floyd's of Leadville.
Check out all of Floyd's CBD recovery tools at floydsofleadville.com and use the code FATTY to get a 15% discount. And again, thanks to Floyd's of Leadville for being the title sponsor of this show.
3, 2, 1.
Leadville, the podcast for the 100-mile mountain bike race presented by Floyd's of Leadville, Season 4, Episode 20 of the show that breaks down, builds up, gets you ready, freaks you out for the highest and hardest one-day mountain bike race in the country. I am Michael Houghton, Hottie to most.
And I am Fatty, and I am no longer freaked out. What a Leadville 100. This one had so much. It's going to take us a number of shows to break it all down. Literally, you're going to be hearing from us for a while on this one. Hadi and I want to say we are, of course, heartbroken over the loss of a fellow rider, and we hope you'll keep that rider in your thoughts as we move forward. And like Hadi said at our pre-ride, we hope Ken Klober is feeling better, and we want to say thanks to Marilee, who is usually hugely visible on that day and the last person you see on the course as you cross the finish line. She was staying close to Ken on race day and the pre-race meetings. We missed her a lot and look forward to seeing her next year, seeing Ken again there next year as we return to something hopefully even closer to normal. Team Fatty, that is myself, Lisa, the Hammer, and Melissa Rollins, all had great days. And we will be doing a full story episode very soon on how that all went.
For this show, we're going to hear from and about some of the races that these are from voices that you've probably heard on this show before, participants of this podcast. We want to know what they thought about the race course and how their race day went. We sought out some veterans of this course to really get some nice perspective. And as much as we're going to hear about how their day went, we're also going to forecast the future of the highest, hardest one-day mountain bike race in the country.
Yeah, we wanted to hear what some of the vets thought about the wave starts and the course changes. And we start with super veteran, season 3 guest, and one of only 2 riders to complete every single Leadville Trail 100, Todd Murray.
All right, we're back with Todd Murray, who was a guest actually in season 3. He is one of 2 men who have finished every Leadville Trail 100, including the 2021 version. But Todd, I guess this year you were out for another reason. Yeah, you finished, but you did something else yesterday as well.
Yeah. So it was my daughter's second time at this. We were here 2 years ago, and after finishing in 2019, she said, "Dad, I think I want to go faster next time." So we were poised to do it last year, but they canceled the race, so we applied it to this year.
Mm-hmm. And she did go faster.
She barely PR'd by 7 minutes, but I really think it was a day that the times were definitely slower. When the leaders especially are going slow for leaders and the winners, then you can apply that and exponentially apply it to everyone else.
Nevertheless, Lauren got second in her age category.
She actually won her age.
She won her age category.
Group. Correct, yeah, by about a minute over the next scale.
That's awesome, okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to the course now. You normally probably start in silver or red or pretty close to the front?
I've started in silver, I've started in red, I started in the green corral this year.
Tell me, first of all, take me through your wave start. What did you think of the wave starts and how did that affect the 2 of you?
I actually loved it. It gave the groups a little bit of a chance to spread out, so we did not experience any of the normal congestion in the areas that we would normally see that. St. Kevin's being the first, Columbine being later on in the race. So for where we were in our wave, it actually was a really good thing.
Mm-hmm. And then we had some few new turns out on course, a private property workaround, a new Columbine turnaround. Take me through some of your thoughts about the new turns and the new diversions on the course.
Yeah, and I actually loved the new course, which is very, very similar to, I believe, the first course we did in 1994. The turnaround might have been a little different in that year, whereas this year we turned around right at the top of the climb. I looked forward to that and not dropping over to the cabin to climb out of where the old turnaround used to be. So I really enjoyed the new course. I didn't think it was necessarily slower or faster, but the conditions this year is what made, I think, the time slower.
Okay. And that little private property workaround, that was a more difficult section for the 2 of you?
No. I think it makes it a little bit longer, but there's no real elevation to it, so it was not an issue at all.
And then are you, I forget from the interview, are you a tried and true mountain biker? Do you want every piece of single track you can get your hands on, or are you okay with skipping the inbound single track?
Okay, so yeah, I love the single track. I don't mind skipping it to get the wave starts in place. In fact, I'd be more in favor of let's skip the single track to do the wave starts. In the old days, we used to actually use a piece of the Colorado Trail that was single track, and it was technical single track. I loved that. Yeah. But as the race got bigger and bigger, it just couldn't handle the number of folks on it.
Yeah, if you want one thing, you got to make a compromise somewhere else, and right. Unfortunately that had to get sacrificed, as did Clavicle Hill inbound. You didn't have to do that this year, which probably, I would think, helped times a little bit overall.
Yeah, I wonder. I'm going to leave it to the analysts out there to look at the times and do all the data, but you're right. We didn't have to walk up a little stinker or do all the single track climbing. We went around all of that, and it was a much more gradual climb to get back on the original course.
So again, I want to flash back to something you said at the beginning of the interview. Overall, what do you think, is this a faster course? Do you think over the years, if they keep this, we'll see faster times? I'm talking about for individuals, not the front of the race, but for folks like you, like your daughter, like the rest of us.
Yes, I think overall, I think this is going to show that it'll be a faster course if we can get a good day. Yesterday it was hot, it got windy, and the recent rains have made some of the real technical stuff even harder by being all chunked out and rutted out. So I think the conditions yesterday were slow, but hopefully next year we'll have better conditions, and I think we'll see faster times for everybody.
And I guess you're telling us that there is a next year for Todd Murray and family, or at least Todd Murray?
For sure for Todd Murray, yes. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that I'll be here again, So I'd love to come back.
Well, congrats on the streak, and congrats to your daughter.
Thank you so much, Hadi.
Okay, so from one of two people to finish all Leadville Trail 100s, Todd Murray believes we have a faster course for the future, although, it's not definite, it's not minutes or a lot faster, I should say. But if you're looking to get a buckle, get a bigger buckle, or just a better time, seems like this course is ripe for the taking.
Oh, that is a discussion that we are going to have. I have been changing my mind in both directions so many times. The only thing I would say that really made a significant difference this year was the temperature. It was a hot day out there. You add altitude and heat, and the course was pretty dry and sandy in some places. I think everyone had to slow down at least a little, or things could go sideways. Yeah,
the heat had an effect on the finish rate. We had 1,417 riders at the start line, 1,084 finished. That's 71% of racers finishing in the 12-hour buckle limit, and just over 75% reaching the finish line in just under 13 hours.
Yeah, really nice piece of news. About 70% of the finishers were first-timers. 788 riders crossed the red carpet for the first time. And Stacy Strignitz took a look at the women's categories and notes for that number for the sub-9 women this year actually doubled.
Yeah, so the women found a way through the heat, and that's great. I mean, we want to see this race grow on the female side as much as we can. So congrats to all of them. Another big thanks has to go out to our friends at The Feed for supporting our listener ride. The team was there with bottles and samples and good cheer for our listeners.
Yeah, we might have harped on this idea enough that Leadville is an eating and drinking contest disguised as a bike race, but I think this last week proved it. Some people are still struggling with getting nutrition right, and for those folks, maybe it is time to hook up with The Feed and their team of consultants. They can help you put together a plan that meets your needs and a box of fuel to match. I did, and it made a difference this year when I really did need a difference to be made.
That's right. You've got a year to figure this out now, or maybe improve on your current plan. Even The Feed knows there's no one-size-fits-all when it comes to race fuel and nutrition. That's why you'll find such a wide array of products on their website.
Yeah. Hadi and I have shared our fuel plans on the show. For another example, you should check out what Matt Johnson, founder of The Feed, does. He's got a smart set of recommendations for how you should fuel your workouts based on your answers to just a few easy questions. How long is your workout going to be? How recently have you eaten? And what is your training objective?
It is worth a read and has great perspective guidance you can use to make your fuel match your workout and race objectives. Go to the blog over at thefeed.com and scroll to the How to Fuel Every Workout post.
Yeah, and if you decide to take up Matt on his recommendations, go to thefeed.com/Leadville and sign up to get 15% off all your purchases.
All right, back to that award ceremony and our race wrap-up. Well, we tracked down Season 3 guest Nate Whitman, who has a more of a front-of-the-race look at how things played out. He also tells us how he keeps turning out such terrific times. Nate, you're piling up these low 7-hour finishes. It's incredible. And another one here in 2021. And a first place in your category?
Second place for men, for men 40 plus, second place.
First place in the podcast guest category. How about that? Okay. Tell me how your day went yesterday. It was like
7:08.
7:08, man, oh man. So how'd the day go?
Yeah, great day. I had a real smooth race. I felt great. The preparation, everything was good. The rollout to the bottom of St. Kevin's with the sort of the front of the pack was really calm and safe and under control, and we just went from there. I climbed mostly with the lead group, fell off the pace a little bit through St. Kevin's, but together with a couple riding mates, including Scott Tietzel, who was a big part of my day, also a 10-year finisher, we managed to reconnect with the lead group on the pavement around Turquoise Lake and up towards Hagerman and Sugarloaf. But then actually from there all the way to the finish, it was virtually a two-man time trial working with my friend Scott, and we had a great day. We had no mishaps, legs felt great, weather was good, and just really great to be back here racing after missing last year.
Yeah, now you know what it's like to start mid to backpack here. You're a 19-year finisher here that you started back there, but I imagine the front of the race for you, do you guys in previous years as you've raced the front, did you ever feel the effects of the race coming up from behind you, and did wave starts clear any of that up for you this year?
I don't think the wave starts impacts too much the faster folks in the Gold Corral. I think that 2-minute delta to the next pack back, whatever it was, 2 or 3 minutes, I think it's enough that there's pretty clear separation. But I absolutely sense the impact of the wave starts out there at Twin Lakes Dam and Columbine and at the turnaround with two-way traffic. It was different than any prior year for sure. Mm-hmm.
Was it managed okay? I mean, I know they probably created new pinch points around the dam on those tiny little sections of single track. Was it more complicated there?
It was. There's there's pluses and minuses. I think to the good, I think the cross traffic up and down Columbine was actually less than in prior years. Plus, at that upper part, there is that one little spot where they've got you routed where you're not crossing each other. The climbers are, on one side and the descenders on the other. So that was nice. So I think overall less volume facing each other on the slopes of Columbine. But the trade-off was that you experienced cross traffic for much deeper into the course. Usually the cross traffic will be done roughly, toward the bottom of Columbine, coming back into Twin Lakes. Here we had cross traffic all the way out, literally across the dam and more. So felt it there, and it probably, was good for a minute or two of slightly slower pacing through those little bottlenecks where the Colorado Trail is, and coming off the gravel on the dam and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Now, take us through the private property workaround. How did that play out for your day? What did you think of that little course change there?
As far as actually what you're riding, it's fine. It's actually pretty enjoyable. But I'll tell you this. I had taken a pretty hard look at some of my prior Garmin and Strava files and the course map and the mileage, and I had tried to sort of figure out whether I thought that the changes were a net add or a net detriment, and I had pretty much convinced myself that despite adding 1.5 miles on a time basis, that it was probably neutral and maybe slightly a time benefit. I had really convinced myself of that prior to race day. Now, having done it during the race, I probably would recant that statement and wonder if it probably doesn't actually cost a few minutes.
Oh, really? Okay. Now, a lot of the folks who've been here for years, even before you started racing, say, oh yeah, that turnaround, we're familiar with that. That's the way we used to do it. Obviously, they had to do it. Would you prefer to go down to the mine, or do you like topping out there and heading back for home immediately?
I didn't have a strong preference. Physiologically, it's probably actually easier to finish the climb. Maybe you take a drink, or if you do neutral support and just start going down, versus in the prior incarnation that we've known for so many years, you finish climbing, then you sort of have to traverse and descend a little bit. Then you have to climb a little bit more to get out of that gully to then start the descent. And that sort of plays tricks on your legs. I think it's a little bit easier mentally and physiologically to just say climb, 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 descend, descend, descend. So I liked it from that vantage point. I will say that it did make it a little bit harder to identify riders crossing ahead or behind you. In other words, you might see a guy that's 5 minutes behind you and say, hey, there's my buddy or there's my competitor in the traversing section down to the mine. The way it was set up here, you just point your nose down, and when you're going down that upper part of Columbine at 20, 30 miles an hour, you're not making eye contact and saying pleasantries. You're just bombing.
No single track inbound this year. Are you a single track pure? Are you a mountain bike purist? Would you rather have the single track? I mean, obviously they had to do it, right? I mean, they had to.
Yeah.
Did you miss it, or were you fine without it?
I was fine without it. I don't have a strong feeling one way or another. I credit the race organization for figuring out, the 3 changes so that the net on time and distance is as close to keeping it level with prior years, so that people that want to come and make their 12-hour or their 9-hour or their sub-7 or whatever it is they're shooting for, they did a really good job of kind of, of netting those changes out to the most minimal as possible. Didn't bother me. That little road that's the alternate to the single track is actually a real pleasant little climb, and it's pretty and had a tailwind, and so I didn't feel strongly one way or the other.
Yeah. So, if they keep these course changes in place, do you think, as folks get used to them, as you get used to them, are you going to be matching times that you've laid down in years past? Are you going to think you'll go a little faster? What's going to happen as this plays out?
Yeah, like I said, based on looking at the map and several years of my own training files, both on race day and in training, I really had convinced myself that it was at minimum neutral on a time basis, which would be counterintuitive because you're adding 1.5 miles, but you're cutting out certain types of terrain, you're adding other types of terrain. Again, I kind of come out of the race thinking, I think it cost me a few minutes. I think that actually the extension of cross traffic probably slows you by a minute or 2. I don't think it's going to have a huge noticeable difference in finishing times. But I would say once everybody's used to it, maybe they make a few little tweaks to the routing of the cross traffic. I think it's pretty much neutral.
Okay, before I let you go, one little Nate tip, please. And we've discussed this with you before. I follow you on Strava, so I get a good idea what kind of mileage you're putting in, what kind of rides you're doing. I mean this with all due respect. You're not blowing me away with the training rides. I go, well, there's another 30, 40-mile ride by Nate, yet you come out here year in and year out and lay down low 7s. What's your little secret? What can you tell people about what you do that might help them to be as consistent as you are?
Yeah, well, a couple thoughts. I mean, first of all, there may be some longer rides that aren't making their way to Strava. I mean, that could be my little secret, because I know I see one of my competitors going big. It's really motivating. So I'm not always the quickest to put every single training ride up there for the world to see. With that said, I have really come to enjoy the gravel racing scene these past, I would say, 5-6 years. I've been out to the Unbound Gravel DK 200 5 years, Rebecca's Private Idaho, Crusher in the Tusher. So I've experienced some of the big gravel races, and that's become kind of my way of getting in the long mileage and the volume. So I don't necessarily focus on the volume out in my solo training. I'm doing 3, 4, 5 gravel events. I went to the Foco Fondo, Fort Collins gravel ride. I think it was just about 3 weekends ago, 110 miles, 6 hours at full gas with a bunch of pro roadies, was great training. So I like to mix the longer volume rides like that with shorter intensity, a lot of recon on the course. And, you know, after 19 years, I know this course so well that there's a sort of a mental and emotional level of peace and karmic balance where I get out there and just kind of go.
Well, congratulations on year 19, and we'll see you back here for your 2,000-mile buckle.
That's right, 20 years next year. Can't wait.
All right. Thanks, Nate.
All right, thanks, Hadi.
Okay, so Nate says the changes will probably be a wash when it comes to times, but he brings up a good point about cross traffic. And that is, even though there's only an outbound single track, we're going to have to watch for each other on those tight sections on the course, especially those spots around Twin Lakes Dam. In my own personal race, and I'm not going to get too deep into this, I did come head-to-head with a couple of outbound racers on the short single track connecting the dam to the dirt road. In both cases, they very graciously moved off trail for me before I got close enough to move off trail for them. I don't know if they'd been given instructions to yield, and it kind of felt, to me like I should yield to them since their race was in cutoff danger while mine was fine. But anyway, it seemed that politeness rules the day in Leadville, and I saw that in almost every case. I really like that. So Hadi, you know how one of our most absolute critical maxims for the Leadville Trail 100 is nothing new on race day?
Nothing new on race day. Absolutely. This one I know.
Yeah, well, I tried something new on race day.
What are you doing? I thought I had you under control.
No, nobody can control me. Honestly, though, it was something new in order to go back to something time-tested. You know that on my single speed, I ride with an NV M6 riser bar at its full 780 millimeter width. On my Epic Hardtail, I've been training for Leadville on, I've been riding with an NV M5 bar, which is 20 millimeters narrower, and it has just a smidge of rise. For my standing climbing style, though, I kind of missed that extra width. And so about a week before the race, I switched over to an M6 bar again, although I did not get the riser version because I didn't need to. I just flipped over my existing NV 100 millimeter stem. It's a road stem. And I got exactly the amount of rise and width that I have on my beloved Niner single speed.
Actually, I ran into somebody post-race in town who said they saw you standing and climbing, I believe on Columbine somewhere. So there you go. So these changes not exactly new for you after all.
No, it's just new for this bike. And with a brand that I trust is not going to fail me. But it did get me thinking, Hadi, you and I tend to focus our readers on Envy's M5 line and the mountain stems for the Leadville 100, and for good reason, because it's a great choice for almost every rider. But on my personal Leadville 100 bike this year, I had an M6 bar, a 100 millimeter road stem, G3 gravel rims, and an NV seat post, which is the same whether you're riding road, mountain, or gravel. I didn't have a single M5 NV item on my bike. And I wasn't doing this to prove a point either, because these all fit my riding style and what I'm best at. And Envy doesn't make featherweight, use at your own risk products, no matter what line you're in. So while M5 wheels are probably the most perfect match for most Leadville racers, I bet you're going to see more G3 rims mounted to gravel bikes on this course in the future, because they can definitely handle it. And I think I am living proof. Across all lines, Envy is just absolutely up to the task.
For now, we'll keep that between you, me, and the listeners.
Right.
But all of you should know that Envy makes bomb-proof, beautiful, strong, light products across the board for all disciplines. Check out all of what Envy has to offer as you dream up your own mix-and-match dream bike at Envy. That's ENVE.com. Okay, back to this course and what we kind of learned. Do we think this is a faster course in the future? I think this race day 2021 proved that we don't know yet totally because of the heat that was involved. We did get some help on the participants page trying to answer the question we had posted to Todd, Nate, and our next guest, and that is this a faster course? After they've ridden it, do they think this could be a faster course? Grant Wolf dug up a little data. He took a look at a good number here, like the number of sub-9 finishers we've seen over the past few years. Now, 2021, we had 225. 2019, which is kind of an outlier of a year because things were so good, we had 324 sub-9 finishers. But maybe that number, we can't really, we kind of have to throw that aside. 2018, a more comparable year, temperature weather-wise, 237 sub-9 finishers. So 225 just this past Saturday, 237 in 2018, and we had 231 in 2017. So we kind of get an idea here that we had just a little bit lower, fewer sub-9 finishers if we throw out 2019 and start looking at 2018 and 2017. And again, if you add 3 minutes to those 2018, 2017 years, you kind of get the same number of big buckles as we had this year. And then if you look at the temperature, the temperature had to be worth like 5 minutes or so. Like, it was so warm. Man, we're talking about a pretty, at least for those folks who are like you, Fatty, have gold buckle in their legs. It's kind of a wash compared to years past. Again, it was quite warm, quite warm this past Saturday, and racers were feeling the effects of dehydration. Daytime high in Leadville and Twin Lakes on race day, Fatty, was 77 degrees.
Yeah. And bear in mind that the heat of the day affects riders who are out there longer more because the day gets hotter as the day progresses. And of course, the people who are out there longer are exposed to those hotter temperatures for longer. And so there is definitely a multiplier effect. Also, that 77 degrees just doesn't sound like very much until you remember the altitude really changes how much temperature matters. If you're in California and riding in 77 degrees, you say perfect days, it's a bluebird day. In Leadville, at that high altitude, boy, the sun just seems to scorch and you feel it more. So, don't take that 77 as, 77 felt like 85. Is what it really did feel like that to me. I did a little bit of nerding out myself on finishing rates and finishing times from other years compared to this year Hottie as well. And this year had comparatively fewer and slower finishes. In 2018, which was another hot year, we still had about 73% finishing by the 12-hour limit and 81% finishing by the 13-hour mark. Now, that's just a couple points slower, and I believe it's the course that makes most of the difference since the heat this year and in 2018 were pretty similar.
And again, bouncing back to 2019, it was a cool year with just a little rain in the afternoon. You see how temperatures and packed trail conditions make a much bigger difference than the course changes. While finishing times in hot years like 2021 and 2018 are very close to each other, 2019 has more people finishing sooner. 20% of the field finished under 9 hours in 2019 as opposed to 16% this year.
Yeah, that is a not small spread. And more people were finishing at all, too. In 2019, 85% of racers finished by the 13-hour mark, as opposed to this year, where we had 77% finisher rate. That is a big difference. Of course, temperature and the dryness of the course are things out of your control. So while all of this is interesting, it's not worth spending time fretting over because you can't do anything about it. So fun to...
Oh, but we will. Come on now.
Yes, it is our job to dig in on the details, but it's not something worth our racers, spending all of your time over at weather.com figuring out how that is going to affect your race. On race day, have everything ready for a hot day and for a cold or rainy or snowy day or hail, and just do your best race. So Pete Stetina was on our pre-ride, and we'll keep going back to the pre-ride. You want something that I loved about this. He is the first ever winner of the Lead Boat Challenge on the men's side. We mentioned this because, like us, Pete leaves his shifting and his braking to Shimano.
Lead boat is a two-bike affair. To do well, you're going to need a mountain bike and you're going to need a gravel bike. Could one bike slay them both? Probably, and maybe that's a future category. But for now, it's likely two bikes for the Lead Boat Challenge. And for that, Shimano can kit them both.
Yeah. You can be like Pete Stetina and go XTR on the mountain bike, but really, XT is going to do the job just great. On the gravel side, it is definitely GRX. Like Mountain, there are several tiers to choose from, Di2 or mechanical, 2x or 1x. They even have a 10-speed version with terrific range. I don't have a gravel bike, thinking about getting a gravel bike, but I probably will. And when I do, it is 100% going to be GRX all the way.
When you're setting up for a weekend like Lead Boat, it's great to be with a company that knows both sides of the road, or the trail in this case, and Shimano does. XTR or XT for flat bars, GRX for drop bars, all of it is at bike.shimano.com.
We spent a lot of time talking about the course, but let's go back to the other big change, and that was the wave starts. It seemed that most racers really liked them. I know I did. We did find several comments on the participants page, however, who believed that the wave starts were the reason, or at least a contributor, to the conga line on Columbine. That when some of the racers from the front corrals started fading back on the big climb to 12,000 feet, faster racers from behind started running into them on the goat trail, and it forced some riders off their bikes. Personally, and of course I can only speak personally to what I saw and experienced, the conga line looked sparser than in years past, meaning I saw less of it. I had every chance in the world to ride, and I would have if my legs had left me, had let me. The reality is there's simply no way to completely eliminate some congestion when you put 1,400 plus racers on a Jeep double track.
Yeah, the race series was hoping that wave starts would eliminate some congestion, including a conga line up on Columbine. But absolutely, this was an experimental year, and they were just trying to figure it out. And look, there's always been a conga line on Columbine from even back when they had, a small number of racers. So
yeah,
it's just one of those things you kind of have to expect that there's a likelihood you're going to be off and walking when you get in and around the goat trail. And of course, the wave starts change the game for our next guy. That's Ty Hall, who starts at the back of the race and raises money for every rider he passes, something the Leadville Trail 100 Legacy Foundation calls Dream Chaser. Ty is also an 18-time finisher, so he has deep knowledge on the flow of this race. This was the 6th time Ty has started in last in hopes of raising a bunch of money for the community he loves. And this was kind of a new challenge because we had wave starts. So if passing as many people as you can in the Leadville Trail 100 isn't hard enough, give most of them a head start and you've got a bigger job. What was your thinking going in?
I wasn't exactly sure how it was going to go, but I think it went pretty well. It kind of thinned out a little bit, so it was a little bit easier to, climb St. Kevin's, where before a lot of times we were kind of really stopped and just having to walk. I was able to stay to the right. I think I only bobbled once going up there. There still was traffic, but it just seemed to flow a little bit better. But as far as starting last, that didn't help my situation at all. It definitely was more work, having everybody have a head start.
Yeah.
So.
And when you say start last, you start right at the back of white, right?
Exactly. I'm like the last guy to cross, the start line. So, which is an honor to get to do it, and it's a great thing to do. But with everybody getting those staggered starts and having a little bit of a head start, it was a little more panicky for me than normal. So, but it was good.
Yeah. Now, as a veteran of this race, what did you think of the wave starts? You think that, when you were racing, just as not trying to pass people for a fundraiser, you raced for Ty, and you know what that meant, trying to deal with people and congestion. Do you think wave starts is the wave of the future here?
It's really, for me, I've done different wave starts in different races and group starts the way that we've done it and all that kind of stuff. And honestly, I personally like just the mass start. It's so cool to have everybody line up. Everybody's doing it together. I think over the years we've been really lucky and everyone's safe about it. So I just like the mass start where everyone's there together, and off and running.
Yeah,
so
I'm with you on that, but we may be in the minority here. Now the race has said, look, let's try this. And I agree, let's try it, see how it works out, and then see where they need to go in the future. So maybe you'll see your mass start back and you'll be able to pass people more readily as you roll down 6th Street. We also had course changes this year. So with the veteran's eye, how did the course changes play out for you? How fast was your ride?
I think especially with having the staggered starts and knowing that we were going to have a lot more head-on traffic, it worked out really well. So I think the course changes were positive because of the way we had to do the staggered starts, with our situation. So I thought that worked out really well. Going back out and where they split us, like on Columbine and some things like that was probably a smart move for sure. And headed back where we didn't go up the single track because you can admit that was just going to be a nightmare. Like you couldn't do it. You really couldn't do it. It wasn't going to work. So that part, I think worked out well.
Have you been doing this race long enough to remember that the turnaround at the top of Columbine is where it used to be when they first started this race? And what did you think about that turnaround?
Yeah, no, I was, whenever you don't have to climb anymore, you're kind of excited. So yeah, having the turnaround there was just fine. And I didn't do it the very first year they had it, but I did it the second. So I have done, a lot of the earlier ones too. So I do remember that. And yeah, I wasn't disappointed when we got to turn around early.
Yeah. And are you a mountain bike purist? Do you want every little inch of single track you can get your hands on? Or are you fine with passing it inbound in the sake of less cross traffic?
No, I mean, I definitely am more of a pure mountain biker, but yeah, whatever I need to do here and get this race done, I'll do whatever I need to do, especially doing what I do. You know, so.
Spoken like a true mortal, even though he's a total Leadville vet here.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get back to your job at hand, which is to pass people. How many did you pass yesterday, and what kind of fundraising did that mean for your foundation?
So yesterday I was able to pass 1,177 riders, which is great. I've been so lucky here and have had some really, really good years, but yesterday I had some mechanical issues with my drive chain and dropping chains, and was having to hike a bike a little bit to get back to my crew to where I could get some help and fix it, which I did get it fixed and all went well. So I had a good day. We passed a lot of people and we raised right at $106,000. And as you can imagine, in a community this small, that is such a big deal. So I'm so psyched and proud to be a part of it. It's so cool.
And if we hold on to these course changes, what do you think we have here? Do we have a faster course in the end, about the same, a little slower? How's this gonna sort out?
In all honesty, I was tracking my time before I started having mechanical issues, or somebody else was, I wasn't, but I was within a couple minutes of where I always am. So I found that a little bit interesting, because I think what they took out and what they added sort of made a balance. You know, you're like, yeah, it was a little bit longer, but we didn't have to go up the single track, and that's slow. So as far as speed goes, I think it's pretty similar. And talking to a lot of friends who've done it over the years, they were super close on their times too. So it wasn't like a blowout either way. And they were all within 10 minutes of where they've kind of normally are. So that worked out.
Well, Ty, as always, congratulations. If folks want to continue to donate, how do they do that?
So they can go to the Leadville Legacy webpage. And forgive me, I don't know the .com, but they can look it up, and yeah, it's great. And they can do anything they want. They can, just help in any way. And again, Leadville appreciates it, and the community and having the bike races here is a big deal. So it helps a lot.
And we appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a great rest of 2021. We'll see you at the start line next year.
You as well. Yeah, I hope to see everybody then.
That website is LeadvilleTrail100Legacy.org, and we ask you to please support it if you can. I watched the wave starts from the side, Fatty, before I headed for the alternate feed zone. Things were orderly, no mishaps that I could tell, and in fact, it made it easier to check on all my riders before they rolled out of town, provided they were all in different corrals, which you were. I mean, I had 4 to check up on, and I was able to check in with all of you before you rolled out of town. I'm with Ty. I prefer a mass start, but waves are certainly the wave of the future. Fatty, they probably could tighten up the rollouts a little, put less time between groups, so the white corral does not get the short end of the stick on the cutoff times. And so Ty, too, can pass more people, which we want to see happen. I did talk to one racer at Twin Lakes who got pulled. He was in white, and he missed the cutoff by 3 minutes.
Oh, that hurts. Yeah, I would agree. I think that the gap between starting waves was greater than necessary. I think that it was wise to be cautious the first time they do this. But for next year, I would say a standard 2-minute gap between each wave will be just perfect. Keep the waves, tighten up the distance or the amount of time between them.
And again, thanks to Todd, Nate, and Ty for chatting with us at the awards ceremony. I know they were tired. I was tired. You could hear it in my voice. They were tired too, but they gave their time willingly. So thanks to those 3 again. Fatty, the best way to get noticed at the award ceremony or in town at Leadville is to do a podcast about the Leadville Trail 100 and then wear a t-shirt around town with the name of that show on the chest. Hey, folks, again, we want to thank our listeners for showing their appreciation for the show. It's you, of course, we should be thanking all of the time. You came up to us, thanked us a bunch, but really, we thank you for supporting the show. We also want to thank DNA Cycling for making those t-shirts.
Yeah. Hadi and I were wearing our Leadville podcast t-shirts everywhere. We made our wives both wear them. And so we are now appearing on all kinds of camera feeds on iCloud across the universe. But Hadi, it was a pleasure hanging with listeners and hearing their stories. As for our t-shirts, we are going to do a new design. We're going to print more of them, and we're going to make them available. And the process is going to be super easy. I'm just going to go to dnacycling.com I'm going to fill out the form. I'm going to send them my logo and some ideas. And DNA is going to magically take my idea and your idea. I'll let you have some input, and they will do the rest.
And, this is something our listeners can do, too, to commemorate your ride or honor your crew. And if you're stumped over a logo or graphics, DNA can help with that design. They can also set up a store. So in the end, all you have to do is direct your people to the site where they can order a custom t-shirt that you designed.
Yeah. And you don't really have to have a podcast. In fact, I prefer not everyone have a podcast, but make one if you want. But you don't have to have one for a custom t-shirt, just a good idea. And DNA Cycling, go to dnacycling.com, choose the custom apparel option. Be sure to let them know you found out about DNA from the Leadville podcast.
Fatty, we've had a lot of great guests over the years, over the 4 seasons on this show. And you know what? Let's do something we haven't done before after the race, post-race, and acknowledge their efforts on race day with a quick shout out and time check of some of our great guests over the years. You want to start this quick roll call here?
Sure. I'm going to read the names of all 1,400 finishers right now. No,
they're not all guests now. I mean, they may be supporters. We're gonna focus on the people who have helped us out on the show.
Anyone who's finished is a friend. But Payson McKelvin was on 2 episodes super recently. He finished with a 6:24. And 4th overall.
Yeah, we're going to mention his name twice then, since he did 2 shows. Payson McKelvin, 6:24, 4th overall. Pete Stetna, as we've mentioned Pete before. Pete has been very generous with his time in the show. Congratulations on the 5th place. He's also the lead boat winner. His Leadville time was 6:24.
Yeah. Now, the 2 guys who are in charge of the Ground Up project, and we've talked with them once and had one of their racers on the show another time. Alexei Vermeulen finished with a 9th overall at 6:41, and Ryan Petrie with 14th overall, 6:48. 2 very fast guys who've been very busy.
The fastest guy you've never heard of, well, scratch that, you've heard from him because he was in this show, Nate Whitman, 7:08, second in the 40 to 49 category. Nate blows me away still.
Seriously, I cannot believe that back in the day when he and I were first starting to race this race, he and I actually would spend a lot of the race together. Not anymore. Sarah Sturm took 2nd in the Leadville Trail 100 and 1st in the Lead Boat Challenge. 7 hours and 30 minutes in Leadville. Incredible.
Shout out to Sturmy. Melissa Rollins, who was also in the Lead Boat Challenge, and somebody you know fairly well. Yes. Right, Fatty? But what a great day. I was happy and proud to hand 2 bottles on the fly to her, and her 6th place at Leadville with a 7:48 and second at Lead Boat, the 2nd at the Lead Boat Challenge. She had a 7:49 in Steamboat. So, wow, talk about consistency and greatness all right there.
1 minute difference between 2 days, 200 and does it come? I think it's close to 250 miles all told. Just extraordinary. Super proud of her. Marvin Sandoval had his best time ever with a 7 hours, 52 minutes. And don't forget, when you hear this right now, if you're listening to it on Saturday, he is running the Leadville Trail 100 foot race. He is doing the Leadman. Boy, that is a fast time to do before a run 1 week later.
Yep, one of the Leadville legends, Marvin Sandoval, ran into a bunch of times in Leadville. Great to see him. Congratulations, Marvin. Another Leadville legend who I saw in town, Heath Speckman. And he is also running because he loves that Leadman stuff. Remember, Heath was our guy who did the crazy 100,000-foot challenge. He did Everesting on Columbine, and for the Leadville 100 2021, he did an 8:13.
That is amazing. And of course, he's doing Leadman also this weekend. He has tried this before, has not succeeded. You look at him now with that kind of time, he has clearly got the fitness. He is one of the people that I'm going to be rooting for, at full gas this Saturday. What a great guy. John Kroom finished with an 8:41. Which means, Hadi, that he and I had to be riding together. And, you don't tell your name and you don't ask everyone their name as you're riding. But with a 2-minute difference between our finishing times, it's sad. I didn't recognize him. He didn't recognize me. but he and I were riding together. And that, frankly, I'm pretty proud about that I could have been riding anywhere in the vicinity of someone like John Kroom.
Some guy named Eldon Nelson came in at 8:43. I guess he's been on the show. But I was there when he came across the line. I saw John Kroom come across the line, and somebody was saying, "Hey, here comes Eldon Nelson." I'm like, God, that name sounds familiar. So congrats to whoever he is, 8:43.
I've been faster. I've been half an hour faster, but I don't think I've ever been a half hour happier. I obviously have a story to tell about my day, and next episode I will. So let's go on to Ty Hall. We've already heard from him. Started from the White Corral. Finished with a 9:06 in spite of, and I don't know the details on this, he had some serious mechanical issues.
Congrats to Ty. And Cole Klober's actually not been on our show, crossed with Ty. Now, they had different times. It's kind of interesting here, Fatty. So Ty did 9:06. Cole had 9:24. So obviously, Ty was closing in on Cole, who started in red. But look, we all want to acknowledge Cole for a couple things. First of all, obviously, as you've heard, Ken was down in Denver in the hospital, and that meant Cole had to take over more of those duties, those inspirational duties that Ken normally carries out. That meant, charging you up at the pre-ride meeting, firing the shotgun at the start line, then running back to the Red Corral, getting on his bike, riding 104 miles. And then the next day, he was up and at him at the awards ceremony where he had to break the unfortunate news about the rider. So Cole had a lot on his plate, but nevertheless came in with a nice 9:24.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just a mountain of work that he was doing in addition to a very hard race. Nice job, Cole. Lisa Nelson, you've heard of her perhaps. The Hammer finished her 16th Leadville Trail 100 with a 9:30. There is only one woman who has done more Leadvilles more times than my wife. The two of us, by the way, have finished it a combined 39 times now.
Mm-hmm. Michael Iddings, who famously posted something on the participants page of electrodes on his chest and talking about his heart condition. He was one of our early season 4 guests this season, talking about his recovery from that, how he bounced back and really pushed his doctors to check his heart to really find out why he was not responding physiologically to all his training. Anyhow, Michael, broke 10 hours, just by barely, but 9:56 from Michael Iddings, our season 4 guest.
Yeah, he was really open about hoping for a sub-9 for his 24th buckle. I passed him on the opening pavement descent and frankly was a little bit surprised. I did not have, he looks more fit and I thought he was faster and I was yelling, "Come on, Iddings," and he just wasn't having a great day, which means he has an opportunity next year as he pursues his 25th buckle to get a sub-9 finish. I think he can do it. Next, Allison Tetrick with a 10:10, another one of the lead boaters and also someone who is famously not just new to the Leadville Trail 100, but new to mountain biking. I actually talked with her for a few moments early in the race on that gentle paved climb between Maqueen and Hagerman's. And Allison, this is the first time I've ever met her in person, and she is just hilarious. And she's really one of the real personalities of any event she races. She was shouting at me, "Have we done Powerline yet?" It killed me. 10:10 is a fantastic first Leadville Trail 100 time. And she went on to do the SBT gravel race the very next day.
Todd Murray, you've heard from. We want to acknowledge Lauren Murray, his daughter, 10-12, and Lauren was first in her category. So congratulations to the Murrays. And Todd, keeping that streak alive. He's raced all of them.
That is so cool. And I will just say to Todd, watch your daughters. They get faster. Jeff Leanhoutz, Mr. Subway at Twin Lakes. He has his 25th buckle was in 10 hours and 37 minutes. And as we are recording, he is racing the Breck Epic. Specifically, he is doing the infamously brutal Wheeler stage. And the forecast in Breckenridge is for severe storms. Good luck. Stay away from under trees, Jeff. And think of us when you're eating your next sandwich.
Yeah, Jeff, I'll send you a Subway sandwich as soon as you're ready for one. Roxanne Hall, how she even made it to the start line. Again, you probably heard her interview from this season. Hurt again. Boy, that poor Roxanne. I just feel my heart breaks for her half the time. She deals with a lot of pain throughout her life, but managed her way to the Leadville start line in 2021, finished, got a buckle, 11:25, not her fastest. She's easily a 10-hour person and probably could do a sub 10, but nonetheless, just being there and finishing, Roxanne, way to go.
Yeah, I defy anyone to be uninspired by Roxanne. She's just incredible. Chris Smith, the racer who uses nothing but peripheral vision and a lot of suspension on his bike. He finished with an 11:46. That is a 10-minute improvement from 2019 for one of the nicest guys I have ever talked to on the course.
Now, Brandon Dyksterhouse is a supporter of the show because he runs the feed, and I was in the feed zone, alternate feed, and suddenly Brandon was standing behind me asking me for my cell phone because Brandon had a mechanical and was unable to complete his Leadville Trail 100. But man, he was in the... most people are severe. I saw people crying, Fatty,
sure,
when their Leadvilles were ended. Brandon was fine. He shook it off. He said, hey, no problem. Broken shifter. What am I going to do? Called his wife, reported in, saw him at the finish line later. He was still in a great mood. And hats off to you, Brandon, for keeping your chin up. And again, thanks for supporting the show.
Yeah. I understand he's going to be doing some revenge racing soon, some redemption races. And I love the name he gave of his Leadville ride on Strava. He called it T-364. Already thinking about 2022, like all of us are, frankly. One of my very best friends, Rohit Berry, he had a DNF, and I will say he gets a special honorary award for telling the best stories from the starting line. We have a tradition of sitting around a fire after the race, and his stories just had us all laughing our hearts out. Yeah, great guy, and looking forward to seeing him in 2022 or whenever he wants to come back to the course.
Yeah, Rohit was my roommate, actually. We shared a house, and great having him around. And yes, he has promised to redeem himself at the Leadville Trail 100. Enzo Mascarella, he was a guest. He was our last guest, in fact, before race day. Had big plans for the race. Unfortunately, could not make it past the Twin Lakes cutoff. Enzo was one of the from the ground up racers. And again, I saw him in town, Fatty, afterwards, and no shame at all. He was proud of what he did and proud that he gotten to the start line and at least made it to Twin Lakes.
Yeah. On Instagram, he noted that he has unfinished business with Leadville. So I look forward to seeing him get the sub 9 that he was hoping for this year. Boy, it takes, I will say it took me 15 tries to get a sub 9. So don't feel bad missing it your first time, Enzo. And I think we're going to have more thoughts on the whole ground up, maybe a postmortem on that in another episode. For now, though, let's go ahead and wrap up this episode, but obviously not this season. We have a lot more storytelling to do. And boy, who knows? Is this going to be our first 1,000-episode season? I don't know. Sounds like it could be. I'm still clearing my head and compiling my notes on what was a pretty amazing day. So for now, you can hear from me and Hottie on social media. I am on Twitter at Fat Cyclist. Hottie is on Instagram at Michael Houghton. Of course, we're both on the Facebook Leadville 100 Mountain Bike Participants page. And if you want to join in the post-race conversation, which never ends, join us on our Slack channel. You can find a link to it over at Leadville100podcast.com.
If you like the show, go to wherever you listen, give us a 5-star rating and write a review. Apple Podcasts, it's a fairly popular place to find a show. You don't have to go to Apple Podcasts. There's other places. So if you want to find the other places to see where this show is or other great podcasts, it's pod.link/Leadville.
Yeah, that's easy to remember. Good luck in your recovery. Thanks so much for listening. And we will see you at the 2022 group ride.
Help me out. Give them a countdown in